Alrighty, folks, we are switching the format a little bit here. We've been talking to some of the manufacturers. Let's just talk to some of the industry experts, the guys out there in the real world, teaching the rest of us not to be morons. Gary Reeves, otherwise known as Mr. GPS, the 2019 Flight Instructor of the Year, and a fellow who just wrote his first book. And we met him the other day and explained that first book is kind of like first child, and gave him a lot of congratulations from that standpoint. But let's talk about what he's doing and why. Gary, welcome to Aero-News, AEA 2021. What are you doing here, man?
Well, you know, I actually exhibited AEA because what I do for a living is I teach good pilots who are great at flying their airplane how to work all the new buttons.
And not be morons.
Yeah, you know, you can put in some really great stuff from Avidyne, Garmin, Aspen, all these great manufacturers. But if you put in all this new equipment and don't know how to use all of it, particularly in emergencies, you're really kind of more dangerous than with the old steam gauge stuff. So what I do is, I do three things. I give away free getting started videos for anything Avidyne, Garmin, Aspen, all the good stuff. Genesis autopilots. I also sell paid videos where people can really master all the features. And then what I really do for a living is I go out all over the world and I spend 3 days with people in their airplane, teaching them to be not just good at IFR, but great with all the functions. And you know the most important thing I teach?
What's that?
You put $100,000 worth of new stuff in your airplane, I get you great at it, and then the end of the third day, when you really understand all of the GPS and all of the autopilot and all of the display, I turn everything off. I black out your entire panel, even standby stuff, and I make you hand fly under the hood down to 100 feet above the deck using your iPad only in an emergency. So now that you knew all the technology in a massive electrical failure, you still have a way out.
So in other words, you've got kind of a real masochistic streak there, don't you?
Absolutely.
So,
it is,
or sadistic streak as well.
Yeah,
good grief.
It's just a lot of fun. And with all my years of teaching and traveling, you know, mostly the US, but all over the world, I found a bunch of stuff that really good instrument instructors teach, that really good instrument examiners test for, that have nothing to do with real world flying IFR.
Well, let's switch up real quick. Got something to show here. This is your baby.
And that's the answer to that.
Ta-da, ta-da. Tell us about the book.
Well, that's exactly what the book is. You know, instrument instructors are very limited in what they're allowed to teach because they have to get you to pass an instrument check ride. And examiners have to test certain skills. But in real world, IFR, single pilot IFR is totally different. And that's what this book is all about. This book is the same training that that I do in my private individuals, but I'm sold out till October. I mean, I can only train so many people. This book, hugely popular. I've been very lucky. You know, it sold 500 copies before it was ever published.
There you go. Good
start.
start.
We're selling 40 to 50 a day, and it's broken down into four things. And it starts with a safety mindset, much better ways of flight planning, much better ways of in-flight, and the fact that all autopilots should use GPS and autopilots more. All good pilots should actually hand fly less, which is opposite than what most safety experts teach.
Use the tools that you have.
Yeah, because if I teach all my people, I never want you to hand fly. I want the autopilot on at 400 feet after takeoff, or 200 feet if you got it, and I want it on all the way down till you see the runway, because then you can look outside, then you can get updated big picture weather. We know that autopilots make people safer if they know how to use them.
Yeah, bingo.
So
there's that if word.
So if people buy the best avionics on the planet, but they never take any professional formal training and just learn by watching a couple YouTube videos, they're not getting the benefit. So that's kind of what the book talks about, you know, and I got to tell you, almost everything in the book will contradict everything everybody else teaches.
Well, the interesting thing, I've been a flight instructor for quite a few decades, CFI, II, MEI, HI, and all that. And I've never believed in the conventional wisdom.
Sure.
I believed in giving my students survival skills above and beyond all things, and then a sense of discipline about how to plan, conduct, and complete a flight. And in many cases, that didn't necessarily agree with the FAA because, frankly, the check ride is a joke. I mean, it's a minimum applicable standard, fine, but it's not real world. The thing I wish they would do, which would be marvelous, is do a check ride and then come back and retake it in 90 days. See what you've learned, what's happened, and so forth. And not say retake it with an examiner, but retake it with an experienced flight instructor, and then have that experience to ask those questions. Yeah, I was doing this, I learned this, and take that real world and start interpreting it as a function of how a flight really should be conducted, as safely, responsibly, and yeah, within the regs.
Sure.
And go from there.
Well, you know, the check ride is really not designed as a real world study.
No.
Because being under the hood is not the same as being in real clouds.
No.
But you know, and I'm sure you know this, and many of you watching may not know this, most examiners, 99.99%, will not allow you to do your IFR check ride in actual IMC because you're not rated yet and they don't want the liability. So many people learn IFR just under the hood, just multiple approaches, but they never practice the real world en route stuff. And that's what this book is gonna give you. In fact, I'm such a believer in pink. You may not know this, but not only do I have a pink shirt, I absolutely have pink shoelaces. I won't show anything else pink I'm wearing on camera, I promise.
Thank you, thank you very much.
You know, I do get a little nervous on camera because I've only been on TV like a bunch. Fortunately for me, in case I got nervous, I was actually able to get an emotional support unicorn.
Gee, I wonder where you got that from.
From Crystal on the camera, and she said, well, the pink unicorn would make me feel better, and this is Uni What-to-Do? Did I get the name right? So thanks to Crystal for loaning me a pink unicorn. And if nothing else, I just want everybody to do this. If you ever see me out in public, and I'm easy to spot, stop, say hi, ask me for a picture, and I would love to meet you in public, and if you stop me in public and pose with a picture, I'll give you a copy of my book for free. And you know, my autograph, if you save it long enough, may be worth pennies someday.
There you go.
Or you could cross out my name and write in Rod Machado, and that would probably make my book worth more.
There you
but
go.
If you want to read a free sample, pilotsafety.org. Yeah, hey, Rod. Or John and Martha, my friends.
There you go.
You just go to pilotsafety.org, click on book, and you can read a free sample chapter. And I hope all of you will buy more avionics, put more technology in the plane, learn how to use it, and let's challenge some of the conventional wisdom that's still taught today. And it's taught for a reason, but you're right. The check ride and the training is not real world, and this is the outlier. This is what works in real world. So classic examples, you know, I tell people never file a Victor Airway, with a couple exceptions. But I don't want you to file GPS Direct either. So many instructors teach, we'll just file GPS Direct. But that's not actually correct. I want you to file almost GPS Direct. You should always file the departure procedure if there is one, the arrival if there is one, but if there's no arrival, GPS Direct to the initial approach fix of the procedure you want to shoot when you get there, and don't worry about the ILS is published. You know, so it's kind of it's like you saying, it's just a different point of view. And open it up to some new discussions.
There you go. What instructions or messages do you have for the CFIIs out there that are struggling to be legal, but really more interested in teaching their students how to survive in the system? So the best thing that ever happened to me when I was training for my instrument is, you know, there's a cross country that's required and all that. I actually did a night IFR cross country where we even picked up a little light trace ice. Mm-hmm. And that was amazing. So the best advice I can give out to all the instrument instructors out there is, if you can find a day where you can put them in actual weather safely. Oh gosh, yes. You got to get them real exposure. You know, you wouldn't believe this.
There was a Part 141 school in Phoenix, tied to a major airline, that their instructors were not allowed to teach instrument lessons in actual IMC. The school said that's too dangerous.
Yeah, it's no excuse for that.
Right, so the advice, it's a great question, is put them in actual weather without the hood, if you can safely.
Man, I was, back in the day when I was teaching actively and I knew we had weather the next day, first thing you do is get on the phone with the students, hey man, here's a chance to get actual. And go for it and plan for it and everything else. And just letting them get comfortable in the clag. And the funny thing is it not only built the skill set, but it built the confidence thereafter. What I wanted when I got done was, okay, pass the check ride, ta-da. But I also hope the next day you're capable of filing IFR and going someplace, even if you got to deal with the clag. That's when I felt I was doing my job.
Do you really want your students' first time in actual IMC to be on their own without you? And I say no. And I've got one more kind of controversial thing. I'd love to throw a grenade and see what kind of feedback we get.
We're big believers in grenades. Throw
you ready?
away, buddy.
I'm just going to pull the pin and go.
Yep, there you go.
You ready for this, guys and gals, my instrument instructor team out there? The first 5 or 6 lessons should be done entirely on autopilot, never hand flown. Because I think the student in real life is going to use the autopilot. B, and here's what's more critical, trial and error is a really bad way to learn. So let me ask you a question, Jim. You're a multi-engine instructor.
Yes, sir.
If I went to your flight school and said, I'm a 200-hour private pilot, and I've watched a couple YouTube videos, I don't really want to pay for an instructor. What I'd like to do is I'd like just to take your twin up and practice engine failures on my own until I get good at it. What do you think?
I think he needs to find another flight school.
So if we start out instrument students with, okay, let's fly a VOR approach, and you make the student hand fly it, all they're going to do is make a bunch of mistakes. They're not really learning, except they're frustrated.
Yeah.
If you demonstrate a coupled approach where the autopilot flies everything, and they just watch the ground track going up a 4-flight chart, and they watch what a good approach looks like, then when they go to hand fly, the learning curve is shortened. And you know, if people did that, I think you'd take 10 or 20 hours off most people's instrument ratings. Because instead of making a bunch of mistakes, they could see a perfect one and then mimic it.
Let me ask you this. I'm asking everybody who comes up for interview today. We had an interesting year. And I keep using that phrase because, boy, nothing else seems to fit. Right. And it certainly is, an underwhelming way of saying what really happened. How does the year that's passed, year plus that's passed, changed your business, your life, and your sense of the community? And what do you think is going to happen to the community as a result?
So I need to say this with some sensitivity because a lot of people suffered due to the COVID and everything that went on. I got to tell you though, I think it's actually been a huge boost for general aviation. And I think it's going to create more general aviation opportunities. I think the pilot shortage is going to come back faster than you could possibly believe. And you wouldn't believe this, but my business actually almost doubled. Mm-hmm. And some avionics shops are now booked 8 months to a year out because people at home now have time to, they want to get their instrument, they want to upgrade their units. So although a lot of people suffered some tragedy, and I'm very sensitive to that, now's the time. I think general aviation is going to have kind of a renaissance. I think it's going to be boost for the next several years. I think now's the time to get into GA. I think now's the time to start pilot training.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we're going to look at a very interesting Oshkosh, barn burner from everything we've seen and heard from so far. I think that's going to be extraordinary. The AUVSI, the unmanned show that follows it in August, is already looking to be exceptional. NBAA is bragging about running out of booths. Yeah. I'm hoping that the aviation industry, all of us, look at what has happened to us, learns our best from how better to communicate, how better to reach out, the necessity for doing all that no matter what means we use. If it's Zoom, God bless. If it's telephone, God bless. If it's face-to-face, even better, but God bless. We do what we can. but I am hoping that a healthier, more conscientious, more purposeful industry results.
Yeah, I think 2021 and 2022 are absolutely going to be record years for everything in aviation.
You heard it, he said it, it must be true. Seriously, the man wrote a book. You got to believe a man who wrote a book. Take my word for it.
That's right. And I brought a unicorn. It's on loan, but you know, unicorns only hang out around people that tell the truth,
unicorn,
right?
I don't know.
Oh, secondhand unicorn.
Okay.
Sorry, Uni, what do you do? You got to go back to Bristol.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 64th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.